Whatever you're planning on doing, particularly if you're trying to change the world, it's probably going to be hard. Um, you're going to need to find ways, ideally healthy ways, to keep your sanity, um, to keep going, to keep your fuel going. And often I've found with myself, the people that I coach, been a business coach for about a decade now, is that some of the things that we decide to use to move ourselves forward, some of those things are relatively healthy, and some of those things are white lies, if not just lies. The problem, of course, is that we're selling ourselves a bill of goods. Yes, it might get us through the night if we say, yes, once I make $1 million, I'm going to be happy and everything's going to be great. So I'm going to do this all nighter. I don't have the energy, but I'm going to make it happen. Once I have kids, once I am with this person or marry this person, once I own 2 different homes on 2 different coasts, whatever, whatever. I mean, that's kind of the torture and the beauty and the wisdom of people like myself who have had been fortunate enough to have a couple successes, is that you're kind of like a Cassandra with the traditional Greek mythology idea. Cassandra was this person who was cursed to be able to always tell the truth and even see the future, but no one would believe her. In that sense, she was impotent. It's a similar type of thing. Imagine you right now and think about your biggest success in your life or your latest success in your life. Imagine telling your younger or older self before you made that success, when it seemed almost unfathomable, when the mountain seemed so high, telling them that you still weren't happy, telling them that still wasn't enough, telling them those insecurities that kept you up at night, they were still there. And in fact, sometimes when you actually reach those goals, they become worse because you cannot fool yourself anymore. So, at the risk of sounding like a Cassandra, whatever crap you got, whatever relationships need mending, relationship with yourself, relationship with others, whatever you need to heal, you might as well just work on it. Because whatever you think is going to fix that and you're going to become a new person, it doesn't work like that. And in fact, that lie that you might be telling yourself, it becomes a lot louder when you can't tell anymore. Look, I'm old enough to remember when goal setting was the ultimate thing. It was the main thing we talked about. We, meaning, my mentors, even some of the books that I wrote way back when. The thing is that goals aren't enough. They never should be enough. Number one, goals, depending on the goal, can be achieved relatively quickly or over the course of a lifetime. Some of them might not actually be possible, though. Not trying that I'm doubting your personal goals. It's just most of our goals, they're liminal. They're once we reach them, we get confused. They change. They're malleable. You win something once, and you're like, okay, well, if I do it a second time, that means it's real. But way before you would have paid anything to do it the first time. They're not reliable. What's way more reliable, I found, are priorities. It's almost like a code of ethics. It's like I've been on the board of directors of a couple different organizations. It's kind of like having your board of directors there saying, this is what I'm going to stand for, this is what I'm not going to stand for. My priority is this. Personally, one of my priorities is to support you as a side hustler, solopreneur, or otherwise a non-traditional entrepreneur. That's my code of ethics. That's the crest. If this was a family, this is the hill that we die on. Now, the hill might change in the future. It's definitely changed in the past as it's evolved. I didn't come out the womb thinking this. But that makes it easier to have it as a North Star versus a checklist of things. Because as you get more and more successful, which I totally wish for you, you're going to start checking off those goals. What happens when all those goals are done? You end up being one of those people that are really lost, not knowing what their purpose is. But if you begin with purpose and priorities, that North Star can last for as long as you want. So I was at one of my kids' parties the other days, a party for another elementary school kid. I was talking to an older gentleman, telling him about the work that I do and about how I help side hustlers, solopreneurs, other non-traditional entrepreneurs. Been doing it for just over a decade, right? And we were talking about what the commonality is with successful people, because he knew some successful people. And I was like, you know what? Every successful person that I know personally, so people I've coached, people who have mentored me, whatever, they're all great storytellers. Now, I'm super biased. I got 2 degrees in journalism, made a lot of my beginning of my career was as a journalist for all kinds of publications, magazines, newspapers, you name it. So I'm biased to that. Excuse me. But I think there's also a lot of truth to that. Again, with my time, I was spending some time with a lot of successful people. Here's how it breaks down. There's 2 different sets of stories. There's the stories that you tell everybody else and the stories you tell yourself. Now, the stories that you tell everybody else, that could be put into like branding or, your mythos or your origin story, how you came to be. If you read any of my books, which are right behind my big head, then you've seen this. What do we tell other people about why we do what we do? It can motivate other people. It can get people to want to work with us. It could be just how we want to be known, our legacy. That's fine. And things start to get more complicated when you don't have your story straight as far as what your actual origin story is and or why you do what you do. But that's nothing. Remember, there's 2 parts. That's nothing compared to the stories that you tell yourself. That is that inner narrative. If your inner narrative is, I'm going to go ahead and become the biggest star in the world because I didn't get the love that I needed or wanted when I was a child or when I was part of my nuclear family. That changes the energy and the direction of what you're willing to do, what you're willing to compromise, versus saying, I actually want to fix these generational curses or issues that my family personally or my culture in general has been dealing with for ages. I'm going to be part of the group, of a bigger movement that's going to help heal those things. Those are 2 different intentions. The challenge is that when you're independent, you don't have a supervisor, you don't have someone doing an annual review, you don't have someone saying, oh, good marks. There's an improvement. You don't have anybody giving you a raise. I've been independent for decades. So if you're new to being independent or if you've been independent for a while, you got my sympathy. You know how it is. You got to figure that out yourself. So the stories that you tell yourself, the stories that we tell ourselves about inside, these aren't even necessarily spewed to other people. The voices inside of our head, they become more crucial because unlike other professions, unlike other paths, we don't have anybody else giving us a story. Sure, I have a ton of mentors. I love all of y'all. You know who you are. But even they know that's not the same as someone continually guiding you, which if you're in the corporate environment or if you have a traditional job, you've got that day and night. In fact, you might be sick of that. We as independents, we're in the opposite boat. We need to supervise ourselves. So that story is going to have to get you through those ups and downs. And if you don't know your story, I work with people who do not know why they do what they do. They might even be semi-successful and they hit a block. That block is because they don't know why they're motivated. They don't know what story they're telling themselves. They don't know the story that's getting them up every single morning to do the infinite hours that we do as independents. They don't know. Therefore, there's 2 problems with that. The first problem is that they don't know what their shadow is. There's a part of them that motivates them and they don't even know themselves well enough to know what story drives them. All they know is that they're driven. And the second part of that is that if you're driven by something and you don't know what it is, it can take you on some twists and turns and drive you to a very dark place.